there is rapid growing consensus that the 1999 constitution must now be decommissioned and jettisoned wholesale, particularly by those clamoring for the restructuring of Nigeria, and even those like who now seek outright independence, like the Oduduwa and the Biafrans and the Middle Belt, and some people clamoring to say, I want to go, I'm not going to let you go. I'm going to go, I'm not going to let you go. Until this constitution is actually the word, look into, are we going anywhere or we're still stuck?
Well, like we've done in the last 3 or so episodes, our people need to understand what the problems are. Like the doctors who do with diagnosis, for Nigeria is sick, in fact, unto death at this time. And people have been wondering, what is this ailment that is choking both the country, but more importantly, the citizens? Because a lot of people, not citizens, the peoples of Nigeria. And I want listeners to pay attention to the words being used. The peoples of Nigeria, totally different from the people of Nigeria. Now, the peoples of Nigeria, meaning the constituents, those who are locked in here by sheer force against their will. Those who have been, who as at now, or all the while will have preferred to be by themselves, but for Nigeria that is laying claim to their space, holding them against their will by force. So the matter is, what is this ailment that has brought the peoples of Nigeria to this kind of a situation in which everybody is choking, that has brought Nigeria itself to where it has now become, the example, the study in failed states. There's actually, I think it's in Harvard or somewhere, that Nigeria has been picked as the case study for failed states. And Nigeria has also emerged the poverty capital of the world, even with all its, oil and gas assets and all that. There's so much of human resources available to it. What is it that has brought Nigeria to where killings are happening all over the place, to where rule of law is almost forgotten, to where the present corruption is climbing, higher and higher, impunity is growing bigger and bigger? What is it that has brought us to this decay in infrastructure across board? What is it that has brought Nigeria to where the debate right now is whether we can continue? A majority, more than 75%, are now saying, look, if Nigeria has turned to a union of death, a union of attrition, a union of backwardness, what is it that has brought all of this to where it is? And young people the other time across the country poured out to the streets protesting what started, something ignited it, the police brutality, which was why they tagged it end SARS, because SARS has become emblematic of that police brutality. Now, by the time they came out, everybody began to see that it didn't start and end with police brutality. The electricity is not there. Corruption is still there. Elections are always upside down. Everything, any direction you look at, poverty is mounting. Public officials are growing in leaps and bounds in terms of their benefits, counting in billions. We saw one of the senators displaying to us the kind of opulence, the kind of wealth they live in a country where more than 80% of them live below $1 a day. It used to be a little better until this daily devaluation of Naira on account of the same factor. And so, like doctors who do diagnosis, our diagnosis, and when I say our, all of those who have the capacity to understand what has gone wrong. The diagnosis for the patient, Nigeria, is that constitution by which it is conveyed and operated is the reason for all of what has gone wrong with it and going wrong with it and will continue to go wrong with it. It is the tap from which all these evils flow. Whether it is corruption we're looking at, or impunity we're looking at, or infrastructure that is not there we're looking at, or the poverty that is growing, or the impunity we see, we can show our viewers the specific provisions of the Constitution that are responsible for each of these, and which, if that Constitution is not taken down, nothing will change. Nothing whatsoever is capable of changing any of those things. The herdsmen killings going on, the seizure of the oil and gas assets of the Niger Delta, for which they go into agitation for resource control, whatever led OPC into taking up arms to contend for the internal security arrangements in Yoruba land, whatever led those who are waving Biafran flag all over the place now for saying, look, we don't want to belong here anymore, or the ones who have now declared the Odua Republic as their preference for Nigeria that is failing them on all fronts. And so the tap from which all this flow is the 1999 Constitution, the unitary Constitution of Nigeria that took us away from being the federation we agreed to be. We became one country because we were going to be a federation where life will be held sacrosanct, where, well, as a secular state, and where all men will be treated equal. Unlike a feudalism in which all men are not equal. Therefore, some are born to rule the others. And so where we are is that diagnosis has been made completely. You now come to the prescription. What are the options available for managing all of this? Well, we see some saying, look, we have waited since 1967 that we went to Aburi to discuss when our union first collapsed, to go back to what we agreed at the beginning, which will work better for everybody. It is the centralization, the over-centralization created by that constitution that is the problem. That's the name of the sickness, over-centralization. That's what we call unitary, which is the opposite of the federal basis of the union. And it is in the departure from the secular state we agree to be by those who impose Sharia, contrary to the express provisions of Section 10, even as bad as that constitution is. The Section 10 of that constitution expressly prohibits the adoption of state religion. And so when 12 states in the far north are running from Sokoto all the way to Maiduguri through Katsina and Kano and Gombe, when those 12 states simultaneously, 12 contiguous states simultaneously adopted Sharia in year 2000, 1 year into the 1999 Constitution, they simply had seceded from the secular union we were building. Their houses of assembly passed the laws, and their governors signed and began to set up Hisba and all kinds of implementation and enforcement agencies. And then Boko Haram came, and we saw that it became difficult to draw the line between where Boko Haram stopped and where the states that were doing Sharia started. When Boko Haram still had time to explain to anybody why they were doing what they were doing, we saw them clearly say that they reject democracy, they want Sharia. That they reject constitutionalism, they want Sharia. Because Sharia is mutually exclusive with democracy and constitutionalism. And so, in that existing complaint of the abandonment of the federal basis of the union, we now got into this compounding factor of 12 contiguous states simultaneously adopting Sharia. Of course, the rest of the country interpreted it to mean that they had repudiated the constitution that is holding us together, even as imposed as it is. Those 12 states had repudiated and seceded from the secular union we thought we were building. And so in terms of options of what to do, those who were the receiving end of all of this, the abandonment of federalism, that's particularly the South and now the Middle Belt, began to think of what to do with their own future, because our sovereignties have been collectively confiscated by the federal government, which has hijacked the federation, and that federal government has itself been hijacked by a small section of the country, the Fulani. Whether anybody wants to hear it or not, it is the Fulani trying to establish, reinforce their hegemony over the rest. That is, the chief reason why this unitarism is being imposed. And at the time, the rest of the country that is rejecting Sharia and rejecting unitarism have reached a consensus of what to do about the matter. If you go back, if you go back to the map that puts the whole thing in perspective, so that viewers can see those 12 states on one side, the ones who say they want SARS, at the time the other people say they reject SARS, the ones who insist on clinging onto this constitution that was alleged to have been made by us, which we never made. Let us know that what we're discussing is a matter of life and death.
Yeah.
Let those who can access, even online, the Constitution, get a copy of it now and see exactly what the issue is in that preamble that is in that Constitution that puts our signature on a document we did not make. Whether you're in the Niger Delta looking for how to recover your assets, the oil and gas that Nigeria hijacked and confiscated, or you are in Yoruba land wondering how the ports of Lagos became the property of Kano people, wondering how the bitumen and oil and gas of Ondo became something nobody in Yoruba land or Ondo land can go near or touch. Whether you are in the middle belt wondering why strangers come from not just the further north, but from all over Africa, particularly the West African sub-region, Fulani strangers they call Fulani herdsmen, pouring in from everywhere, armed with sophisticated weapons, can come to your community and kill as they like, with no consequences at all. All of those things are coming from provisions, specific provisions in that constitution that now claims that you authorize your damnation in the preamble. To make it simple, the preamble says, we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That we the people refers to we the thief, we the Doma, we the Jo, we the Igbo, we the Yoruba, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity, meaning that we have by our own volition submitted our lands and our assets and our people into the union to be called Nigeria. That is what that preamble says.
Into slavery.
Yes, into slavery and servitude. Into giving up all our assets as contained in the Constitution that now lists all of those things as belonging to some federal government in a federation that collapsed in 1966. Now, in that same preamble, it goes further to say, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. So there are two claims, and I want us to keep those two claims apart. The first claim is that we have submitted by ourselves after discussion amongst ourselves. That is, the constituent component nationalities are the ones saying this. To be in this union of indissoluble and indivisible, do hereby, that's the second claim, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. That is, the constitution is the union agreement. Nobody can write an agreement if they have not discussed with those they have to agree with.
Yes.
What that preamble represents is that we have all agreed to submit ourselves into this union, and we have therefore gone to write this constitution as the articles to govern our relationship, just like the memo and articles of a company. the shareholders, those A, B, C, D that come together to submit their assets and commit themselves into, into a body corporate, XYZ Limited. In the first part is where you have the memo, the memorandum forming the company. That's a totally different document. All of you are familiar with memo and article. You will see that the memo is one document and the article is another document, articles. And so the constitution to the country is exactly like the memo and articles to the company. The memo creates the company, everybody bringing what they have to bring, and that is where you begin to determine what's stake. What are you bringing? What are you going? How are we going to? What business are we to be doing? What business are we coming to do? How are we to do it? What are the, who is bringing what and who is taking, in all of that, it is that discussion that ends in an agreement of forming the company. And then the articles begin to spell out who brings what, who takes what, if there's problem, if there's profit, every single thing that will happen to the company is listed in the articles. But let us bear in mind that it is the memo that creates the company. If you have not addressed the question of those who are going to form the company sitting together to agree to form the company, you cannot go to the question of articles and memo. In the case of the Constitution, the issue before the Union right now, and this explanation is going to the members of the National Assembly, the federal government of Nigeria, all the stakeholders, the constituent components of Nigeria, whether they be Yoruba or they be Icho or they be Ogoni or they be Doma or Tiv. This explanation is going to stakeholders that the question before Nigeria now is, have we agreed to submit our lands and our peoples into this union as claimed in that preamble? Have we therefore written the Constitution, made and given unto ourselves the Constitution? Every other provision in that Constitution, including the 36 states that are listed as the federating units, including the 774 local government areas that are listed as sub-federating units, including all the provisions on the exclusive list that sees the assets, whether it be oil and gas or coal or bitumen or limestone, and the right to do all kinds of things, including policing ourselves, defending ourselves from invaders, arms and ammunition, all those things that are listed in the exclusive list is the mechanism by which your assets are detained from you by those who impose that Constitution. Because we have proof in the document itself. We have proof in the document itself that we did not make that Constitution. Decree number 24 of 1999, by which Absalom Abubakar promulgated that decree, that Constitution, spelled out step by step how he came about the Constitution. He says he formed a committee, a Constitution debate committee that went round, and most people wanted a return to 1979 Constitution, and therefore his Armed Forces Ruling Council accepted that report and made modification as they deemed fit, and passed into and proclaimed what they have modified as the Constitution 1999. It is written in black and white. Anybody who knows any lawyer anywhere, especially those lawyers who have been presenting themselves as experts in constitutional law in Nigeria, but who are not telling the people that the source of their misery is that modified as the Constitution 1999.
Sorry.
Yes. The people that imposed the Constitution told the story in Decree number 24 of 1999. Absalom Abubakar signed off on that decree. And every provision in that Constitution, including the ones that absolve the government of responsibility towards the citizen, for the young people who poured out on the street, wondering why they have been excluded from the economy of Nigeria in the manner we see. The tap from which that situation is flowing for you is Section 6, subsection 6C of the Constitution. That section suspends that all of your entitlement in the social contract contained in the chapter 2 of the Constitution. It is in that chapter 2 that all the good things of life are listed for the citizen. Every good thing you can imagine is loaded in that chapter 2. Oh, that the first business of government is your welfare and your security. That everybody shall be treated equally, so that nobody is preferred, before the other. All kinds of platitudes, goodness, everything you may want to have as citizen is loaded into that chapter 2. But section 6, subsection 6C, I want the young people, anybody who can read and write, anybody who can write down his name by himself is able to ask the lawyers, the civil society people, all of those that say they are human rights activists, you are slaves in this land on account of that constitution that takes away in black and white all of what is due to you by virtue of that section 6, subsection 6C. Let journalists, let media people who are listening, ask all those lawyers that come to run their mouths in their studios, whether on account of that section 6, subsection 6C, the government owes you any obligation for housing or education or food or security. The answer is no. Any lawyer that says, especially the ones that have been encouraging you to go to court to exercise your right, that, anything contained in that chapter 2, all the things that accrue to you under that chapter 2 have been rendered non-justiciable, have been nullified by that section 6, subsection 6C. Breaking it down further, the government under that provision does not owe you any obligation at all as citizen. Anything they do for you, that's why they spend more money advertising the things they do as if they borrowed money from their father's business to go to do it. Anything they do for you, anything they do, whether they build school or they build roads or they build hospital or anything that comes to you because government has spent money, they are doing it out of the milk of human kindness. They do not owe you any obligation, and it is in black and white. As long as that constitution is standing, that provision is the source of the number one source of the poverty that has climbed the hills of Nigeria to the extent we have seen. If that provision is removed, 80% of the problems of the citizen will begin to disappear, because you will then discover that the chapter 2 compels government to provide for you before it begins to spend on itself. But because of the insincerity of those who impose that instrument, it is presented as you having a bunch of rights, a basket of rights, but that right is taken away with that one clause. Again, we come to impunity. You are wondering why so much is going on and nobody's in prison. Section 6, subsection 6D also makes provision for how you cannot question all the things that were done between the 15th of January in 1966 and the 29th of May in 1999. 33 years of
mystery.
Absolute immunity. The immunity provisions continue in section 308 for those who are now in office, installed by those who are under the first immunity of 33 years, because they are the ones who stole everything that Nigeria owned for themselves. And they say nobody can question however they did, whether they killed 1 million people or 3 million people to get there, whether the assets they seized are still being missed and demanded by those who lost it to them, including the oil and gas of the Niger Delta, all of those who are now the owners of the concessions. The reason why nobody has been able to question anything about what was done by decree between 1966 and 1999 is that provision.
Can I jump in there for a second? I'm going to let you continue. Could it be that English is the problem that caused all this? People doesn't understand English.
What of the lawyers? What of the lawyers in the land, the senior advocates, the professors?
Sometimes professors are idiots, you know that.
I have sat down with them, and in the coming days, their names will be all over the place. They are dishonest. The ones who I felt, and when I say let nobody misunderstand it. A whole number of people are involved in what we are doing. But when I say I mean personally sitting down eyeball to eyeball with these people who I now say are dishonest. Those senior advocates, those professors of law, every one of them who have been in the public space. Every one of them who have been in public space. You understand? We went to them thinking, let us even just explain to them, including the authors of that constitution, including the authors of the 1979 edition. And I'm talking to Ben Wabweze is still alive. He's the one that crafted on the instruction of Murtala Mohammed with Rotimi Williams as the one who brought him in. They were the ones who crafted what became the 1979 constitution. All the things we see in the 99, like I already explained, that they said that many people, talked about going back to 1979. Even the 1979 constitution was that kind of a foundation. We are building on a damaged foundation because we go back to that preamble. Everything I've said so far, the implication of that preamble is that you are the one who agreed that the government should not owe you any obligation to provide anything for you. You are the one who agreed that those who are stealing the Commonwealth should be questioning or investigation. You are the ones who agreed on the 68 items on the exclusive list that take away the guns from you, while the enemy can come and kill you at will and take your assets. You are the one who agreed that you cannot generate electricity by virtue of that preamble. So for those who gather in the National Assembly pretending they are the ones who have to make constitution for us, the business, that discussion, like we already see, that discussion of we the people should be happening exclusively between those who are submitting their lands and their people into the union. The Yoruba sitting in their sovereign space, the Ijaw sitting in their sovereign space with all their assets and their sovereignty. The Idoma, the Tiv, the Berom, the Kataf, and all of those who you call Nigerians, they are the ones with the exclusive responsibility for committing themselves into the union. There's a video I wanted you to play, especially the first 5 minutes and the portion from the 10th minute, 10 minutes 20 seconds to the end, so that when I pause from this introductory part, I will want you to play that video so that our viewers can hear it from some of the lawyers they know, at least one, Olisa Bakoba, who were at the Institute of International Affairs in Lagos, discussing this same matter in the presence of an audience of enlightened people. And Olisa did agree at the time that the people that two things must happen from the problem we have arising from this 1999 constitution. That the first claim that we have agreed has to be resolved by bringing those who are going to be in the union, who want to ask them whether they want to be in the union. The Yoruba had to answer that question by way of referendum, because those two issues arising from the two false claims in that preamble that we have submitted ourselves, that's one big issue. And that is the one that puts the matter completely outside the hands of the National Assembly. The only way to resolve that is to get those who will be in the union to agree to be in the union. And it's only by referendum that will happen. They have to vote in a referendum to say they want to be in the union. The second one will then be when they have agreed to be in the union, they will elect those who will go to sit down, whether you call them Constituent Assembly, but it cannot be the National Assembly that is the product of that constitution that is being rejected. Because what is going on now is that everybody has now come to the realization that that constitution is the source of their misery. And there's a consensus, a rapidly growing consensus, including from among the young people who came out to the street. Yes, SARS was the prompt, but I clearly remember seeing video clips, even on your station, taken from the Lekki Tollgate epicenter of the protest, where the protesters were saying so on the podium, that constitution is, that 1999 constitution is the source of all the miseries they have been lamenting all these years, and that their demand will be the extermination of that, the extinguishment of that source of turning off the tap, that constitution has to be decommissioned, like South Africa had to do with apartheid, like Chile has chosen to do with their military-imposed constitution that came in 1999. Just 2 weeks ago, Chile has come to the realization, to the common sense of doing away with what does not work. But people gather in Abuja, including people from all the parts, holding on to a forgery, holding on to a fraud as the basis of the union, and telling the rest of us that they have now taken over our sovereignty. Again, another specific provision that will provide clarity. Let those who can take note take note, because unless we realize these things, we are just heading to a catastrophic collapse of this union. Because those who are being killed, those whose assets are being detained, those whose lives have been rendered unlivable, those who have to trek to the Mediterranean through the desert and dying in these numbers, those who have become slaves, trapped in foreign lands, being killed, their organs are being harvested in thousands and thousands and thousands every day, because their homeland, their country has ejected them. The ones who are still here are being pursued and killed in the manner we have seen all over the place, all coming from the false claim that we have submitted ourselves into a union of debt, a union of attrition. And we are telling all of those, everybody have been shouting and crying, those who want restructuring, those who say they are fed up, they want to leave. The simple starting point in this discussion must be to acknowledge that we have not made that constitution. To give a time-bound commitment to how to decommission, how to jettison wholesale. Not one alphabet will be taken from that constitution on account of these things. And if anybody wants to know why, again, I refer us to section 14, subsection 2A of that constitution. Section 14, subsection 2A is where you find the proof that unless you make the constitution, unless the constituents, the sovereign constituents, the subnationalities make the constitution, anybody else who is writing any document, just like the shareholders of the company are the only ones who can write their memo and article, not the hired management, which is what government is, including the National Assembly, including the federal government. They are all parts of the hired, including judiciary. They are all parts of the hired management in the enterprise Nigeria. The owners of the enterprise are the ones who could be countries of their own if that Nigeria was not occupying their space. For Nigeria to occupy their space, there has to be a discussion, a clear-minded discussion in which they will commit. And that was done the last in Lancaster House. That was the basis of Nigeria becoming one country as independent. And they settled all the terms that there will be a federation, that they will have all kinds of things, working in all kinds of ways. All those things have been thrown away since 1966. The 5 constitutions that defined that federation have been jettisoned, and we have one constitution. In which federation will you have one constitution? And lawyers are going about saying that they want to draft constitution. Ben Wabweze did that for many years, including up to Jonathan's tenure, going to say that he will have to draft one constitution for a federation like Nigeria. Olisa Bokaba has again joined in that stupidity. I was reading with shock the memorandum he sent to National Assembly drafting constitution or a bill for the amendment that will become restructuring. If the National Assembly accepts to do that, at what point would the Yoruba be discussing with the Ijo and the Igbo and the Doma and the Tiv in what will become constitution? For somebody who had publicly stated, and I want the viewers to see that video so that they can understand the depth of wickedness we're discussing. And it's not only him, most of all these lawyers and professors and senior advocates parading all over the place. They are the reason why the people who should know, and this is a challenge to the Nigerian Bar Association, we have engaged them in private. Since the time Olisa Abakoba was president of Bar Association, there's nothing I've said here that the Bar Association has not been confronted with in private. But they are more interested in what they get from a rotten system, from a system that is bleeding all over the place, from a system that is consuming the constituents. Let the Bar Association come out to tell us their position on this. Let the men of God in the land come out and tell us their position on this, because we have also engaged them without exception. We went to show them. We went to show them the source of the misery of their flock, but they were more interested in private jets and private universities. And look at what it has become for everybody, 21 years running. And people are still discussing how to go to election in 2023 under this wars and apartheid constitution, not minding whether millions of people die further from those who already died, not minding whether poverty increases beyond what it is, not minding that the young people who have done their part, they've gone to school, they've done everything. You lock them out of the economy. And you expect that they're going to, that peace will reign in that foundation of injustice.
They're wasting their time. Let's watch the video. Let's watch the video, the first video from that the Voice of Reasoning. Let's watch the video from the Voice of Reason. I'm gonna play from
2018.
Yeah, I'm gonna play from 2 minutes 15 seconds. Yeah, let's have a look at it.
Its VOR leadership series themed Restructuring, a panacea for justice and peace in Nigeria, at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, Victoria Island, Lagos. The Voice of Reason, VOR, is a group of eminent Nigerians of Yoruba extraction who are accomplished professionals who focus on public good issues within the strategic context of effective, good, result-oriented governance of Nigeria in general and of Yoruba land in particular. The discussants at the colloquium were former President, Nigeria Bar Association, Dr. Olisa Agbakoba, environmental and human rights activist, Ann Kyo Briggs, Secretary, Lower Niger Congress, LNC, Mr. Tonin Nadi, son of late Alhaji Sir Abubakar Tafabalewa, Dr. Abdul Jalil Tafabalewa. The discussion was moderated by the chairman, Space FM, Otumba Dejo Shibogun. The chairman of the occasion was the co-founder, Eko Hospitals, Olurogun Dr. Sani Kuku. The event formally began with the discussants taking turns to address the topic of discussion. The first discussant was Dr. Olisa Agbakoba. He said the sub-nationality were the ones who had the political discussion on the arrangement Nigeria made prior to independence. He noted that the discussion made then gave birth to the 1960 and 1963 constitutions, adding that before deciding on a type of constitution for our country, we must identify those willing to be part of the country called Nigeria, because without that, we cannot have a constitution, especially when there are no clear conceptual agreements between one group and the other. The third speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Inyam, retired, in his view said, "We're in a country where the social, political and economical powers have been hijacked for the selfish purpose of the hijackers." He added that the restructuring of the national security architecture is meaningless under the present military constitution, citing the United States of America as a typical example. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Inyam, retired, said, "In Nigeria, we use the word national to mean one Nigeria, as opposed to its real meaning." He stressed that socialization of corruption in Nigeria cannot be done away with, except there is a background check to eliminate the root cause of corruption.
Can the institutionalization of corruption in Nigeria be effectively done away without an address of the underlying conditions, which are the root causes, the means of sustaining corruption, and the cover-up of the national grant. If the present situation of the federal government illegitimately confiscating the Niger Delta and the Lagos State people's respectively natural resources and VAT, is it not an example of institutional corruption? What is not corruption? With this mother of all corruption, the outcomes of the present practices of governance would most likely be crooked. What's worse, the Nigerian Independent National Electoral Commission is only independent in name. There are no serious constitutional basis for the present Electoral Commission to be free from the president's control. Let's stop deluding ourselves. The existing Nigerian political economic system has been structured to be corrupting of the minds of the country's leaders.
The next speaker, Mr. Tony Nnadi, Secretary, Lower Niger Congress, LNC, said, for restructuring to take place, there must be a consensus at different regions, as the campaign for restructuring is for equity. He cited a personal experience on the need for restructuring in the country, adding that the Union of 1914, which was imposed by the British government, should be revisited, as the basis of the Union cannot be sustained anymore.
Do we want to continue in this Union? If the answer is yes, and nobody is going to go to answer that question on behalf of any group, the Yoruba will have to decide in-house, and the Voice of Reason has said so in the past. The Yoruba will have to decide in-house in a referendum, conducted however they do it, to first commit to wanting to continue. So also the other blocks. The two organizations I'm associated with, the Movement for New Nigeria is a aggregation of all the groups that are saying this is not working for us. Many are saying, are we to go to renew our enslavement by way of another election under the Constitution? If we go, they will have another 4 years. Don't let us deceive ourselves. There may be people who want to be governor and senator. We're not anarchists. We say, let those already elected remain where they are. Let us undertake this emergency reconstruction, which is like moving Nigeria into the operation theater. Although if we don't, of course, it will then be a choice to allow that Nigeria to die.
Even though it's just a summary of what happened at that conference. Yeah. But it's very, very disheartening, some of the things that was highlighted there. Because when you look at it, you just look at it and said, where is this video all this while? What happened to this video all this while? Where is this? Why don't we know about some of the things they discussed here? One, some of these people at this discussion, I strongly believe, instead of listening to the people giving the speech, some of them was having discussion within themselves. Thank God the video didn't show any one of them falling asleep on the chair that day, like they always do in the house. So, and things are getting clearer and clearer that it is not only one area we have to fight. There's so many areas that has gone wrong with this our country called Nigeria. And this is why everybody, even the dog in that country, wants to leave that country. I'm sure. Unless they do the needful thing. Give us your take on that clip we just watched, Tony.
Yes, the reason I wanted you to play it to the hearing of our viewers, to the seeing of our viewers, is that those who are pretending they no longer understand what the problems are the ones more than anybody else responsible for what we're in. I'm sure you heard Olisa Bokoba say very clearly that we can't be talking about writing any constitution except the constituents, those who will be federating, agree.
Yeah.
He called them sub-nationalities. That's the Yoruba sitting down with the Ijaw and the Ogoni and the Igbo and the Idoma, as claimed in that preamble that we the people, that is the meaning of that we the people. What Olisa Abakoba was explaining is the meaning of that we the people. To sit down and clear-mindedly commit their lands and their people into the union to be called Nigeria. And therefore, to go to another meeting of writing the terms of that union, that's the one you call the constitution, the union agreement. If you are avoiding, like Nigeria have been avoiding since after 1967 Aburi, Nigeria have been avoiding that discussion because the discussion that took place in Lancaster House have been overtaken by the collapse of the Nigerian Federation. Nigerian Federation collapsed in 1966. The attempt to revive it in Aburi was, more or less frustrated by those who picked up arms and began to shoot at other people to have their way. And it is what the constitution we have on the table now is the victory charter from that armed and forced, union in which more than three-quarters, as I speak with you, more than 80% do not want to have any further thing to do with that union. That is now a union of death for them, a union of attrition. And so, if knowing all of that, Olisa Abakoba comes in 2020, 2 years from 2018, to draft a constitution, to draft a bill by which the restructuring will be undertaken and sent to National Assembly. What has changed? What is it trying to do now? On behalf of who is he making that kind of proposition? Has he suddenly lost the knowledge he had in 2018 about what the problem is? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And as it is with Olisa Abakoba, so it is with Femi Falana, so it is with all of these lawyers who are senior advocates and professors of law parading all over the place. Some of them are in the Senate, pretending that our sovereignty now vests in the National Assembly or in the government. Section 14.2a I was talking about, I want our people to make notes and to confront those dishonest lawyers, those dishonest senior advocates, those dishonest professors of law, those dishonest leadership of the Bar Association. Confront them with those specifics. Section 14.2a of the 1999 Constitution admits that sovereignty, I'm quoting now, it says, sovereignty belongs to the people from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. Full stop. Again, I repeat, sovereignty belongs to the people from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. What does that mean? Until the Yoruba, the Ijaw, the Ogoni, the Idoma, the Igbo sit down and submit their sovereignty and then captures that their agreement for doing that in a document called constitution, no document can become constitution because it is an incident of their sovereignty. Constitutions are made with constituent powers, which is an incident of sovereignty. The National Assembly is like part of the management team of a company coming to say, we are now the one to write your memo and article, and they have removed our names from and our shareholding from the memo and article that brought us together in 1960, from what they were doing since 1967, having overthrown the constitutions, the 5 constitutions that define the Federation of Nigeria. And so where we are now is that those who did not know before are getting to know now. Let nobody deceive himself. And this is not a matter that guns can resolve. If anybody is stupid enough to think that guns will resolve this matter, at a time people are already being killed in the numbers we have seen, at a time people realize it is on account of forgery, on account of putting their signature on a document they did not make, that you have seized all their assets and assumed for yourself the right of life and death over them, creating states by decree that now make them minority in the places where they are where there are clear majority. The 36 states that were created, the 7 and 4 local government areas that were created, the 68 items exclusive list by which the assets and the rights of the constituents were sequestered by a rogue federal government that emerged at a time the federation had collapsed, and which has now been hijacked by a section of the country, the Fulani. That's what we're living with. But my message on behalf of all of those who are choking, because I happen to be co-convener of that alliance, bringing together all of those who are choking in southern Nigeria and Middle Belt. I happen to be co-convener of that alliance called the MNN, Movement for New Nigeria, which is actually Movement for No Nigeria, since we don't want to discuss Nigeria. The question on the lips of all of these groups, whether they are the ones talking about Odua Republic or the ones talking about Biafra Republic, the question on their lips, or the ones talking about resource control in the Niger Delta, or the ones who are wondering why Fulani will come to kill them in Benue in these numbers, in South Africa in these numbers, with the governor who is Fulani supervising the genocide himself. All of them, what they are asking at this time is, what is Nigeria? If Nigeria has become the reason why they have to die, then to hell with that Nigeria. That's what they are saying. They are not rejecting Nigeria, the federation. They are rejecting Nigeria, the unitary state. A word of difference. The one they call one Nigeria is that Nigeria of imposition. The one they want is the Nigeria of agreement. The Nigeria of agreement is still possible today. But the first order of business is that those who are swearing to defend and uphold that constitution, those who are drawing power and authority from a constitution that was not made by the people, must now accept that the union can no longer be carried, that the union can no longer be sustained on the basis of the forgery. That was how Rotimi Williams described it in 1999. 3 weeks after Absalom imposed that constitution, the lawyers gathered to review what has been done. Obasanjo didn't see that constitution until he was sworn into office, because they were trying to hide something. Eventually, everybody began to read it, and the meeting was called. 1999. Rotimi Williams described the 1999 constitution as a forgery and a fraud. All of these platforms that have been discussing what we do about those things, of which I've been involved very deeply too, that called a meeting of the owners of Nigeria. That's the constituents that are supposed to be discussing, the nationalities. That was what came out as PRONACO in 2005, after 3-4 years of consultations and mobilization. We had 164 ethnic delegations. We sat in Lagos, we sat in Port Harcourt, we sat in Enugu, we went to Jos and Kano, we came back to Lagos to conclude. For 2 years, we were discussing these issues. How do we refloat the ship of the Federation of Nigeria? Is there how we can come to discussion and agreement? And we had those discussions. Buhari was part of the Fulani delegation that came to that meeting. Sayed Abubakar was part of the Fulani delegation that participated. Bola Tinubu, who now is a chief driver of APC, was governor in Lagos. He was governor in Lagos that more than anybody else facilitated that conference. Fashola, the now Minister of Works now, was his chief of staff, who mediated in terms of all of what they had to make available to those who were struggling with Obasanjo at the time. Because Obasanjo said we were committing treason for calling a meeting of the owners of Nigeria. In his mind, the government had become the custodians of our sovereignty. That is treason. All of those who are clinging onto that constitution that we did not make are committing treason against the rest of us. Worse still, those from the other part, from the South and Middle Belt, whether they are senators or they are house members or they are councillors or they are governors or state assembly members, all of them from Southern and Middle Belt Nigeria, who are swearing to defend and uphold that constitution. The political parties who go to elections under a constitution that is being repudiated by their own people. All of them are committing treason against the rest of us. And in the coming days, when things begin to snap, because things are bound to snap.
Definitely.
Things are bound to snap.
Definitely.
These young people who now realize that they are being deceived by a very wicked generation. Where do you want them to go? They go overseas, they are being chased all around the place. They come back and you begin to call them all kinds of names. The president will say they are lazy when you lock them out of the economy. And then we saw the kind of nasty things being said by those who are sharing the blood of the people they claim to represent. The governors go to collect 5 billion, 10 billion every month, knowing fully well that no part of that money is meant for their people. And we can see where the monies have gone in terms of what they do for themselves. The senators and the House members who are now insisting that our sovereignty belongs to them. The ones from South and Middle Belt sitting in Abuja, sitting in government houses across the South and Middle Belt, swearing to defend and uphold this worse than apartheid constitution. This might be the last warnings you will get. This might be the last notice you will get for what will befall you for being a part of the killing of your people. I do not blame any Fulani man for trying to retain what their great-grandfather Ahmadu Bello handed down to them. I do not blame anybody from those Sharia states for trying to retain what Ahmadu Bello helped them secure. I blame those from the South and the Middle Belt who know. The ones who do not know, let them know now. But the ones who know, and I can tell you, the senators know, the House of Assembly members know, the House of Representative members know, because they have been approached, they have been told. The men of God in the land know. We wrote them letters. We showed them what we were doing. Somebody like Bakare knows. But look at what they've done. The only peaceful opportunity left for this matter to be resolved is for us to accept at this time that that constitution was not made by the people, like South Africa accepted in 1990, that the apartheid constitution of master and servant, every single thing that went into apartheid constitution is present in this constitution.
This one too, yeah.
Every single thing, it was designed as a constitution of master and servant. The Boers did their own in South Africa in 1910. The British and their Fulani friends did their own in 1914. The documents by which they did all this are now in free circulation.
Yes.
These young people you thought do not know anything, I can assure you they know a lot more than you know about what the problem is right now. The documents by which Nigeria was created by the British are in their hands as we speak. All of the constitutional instruments to enable the criminal enterprise that Nigeria was designed to be, to remain. Nigeria was designed to be a criminal enterprise by the British who set it up. And that joint venture between the British and the Caliphate is still in place. 3 million barrels of crude oil still being sold every day in the name of that joint venture. The proceeds of it being shared by that joint venture among themselves. And the stakeholders, the renegades from our parts. Anybody from South and Middle Belt Nigeria that will swear to defend and uphold that constitution is the enemy we're looking for at this time. Let nobody make any mistakes about that. Anybody that can be identified on the side of that constitution is the enemy that those who are choking, those who are being killed, those whose future have been ruined. That large crowd you saw, I'm not talking about the criminals who went looting, taking things from other people and setting fires on all the places. We're talking about people who are now demanding that their sovereignty be brought back to the table for renegotiation. The enemy that will be their prime engagement are those from South and Middle Belt of Nigeria who are doing business under this apartheid constitution for the humongous benefits they get. They know that the citizens are locked out, but they are doing it, they are clinging onto that constitution because of what it gives to them. That's the only reason. Every month you go and collect 50 million, 40 million, and you are discussing 18,000 naira for other people. The Nigerian Labour Congress, I say unto you, shame. Shame on you that you do not want to play any part in how the people you claim to represent will come out from the misery and the growing poverty that is swallowing them. We have approached this project has approached all of the stakeholder groups, the bar association, the labor movement, the church in Nigeria. None of them is interested in solving this problem. And that's why a few people, less than 1%, all of the armed forces of Nigeria's population. Do we have 2 million civil servants, including the army and police? Less than 1% of the country hanging onto an instrument that takes everything from everybody. And people from all the sides go to take their own portion of the benefits. That has come to an end. That constitution must now go. Anybody who wants to keep that constitution is bent on destroying whatever is left of this union. The choice we have to make now, the fight to save the Union of Nigeria was lost a long time ago.